This young telecoms magnate reminds young leaders that authority is not always attained by taking established paths.
Okay, thank you. That's something very close to my heart. I said earlier on, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if you join politics in Zambia today, or in Zimbabwe, or in South Africa, or even in Kenya, any of the parties that you have, and I know them, you're probably just going to be more of the same. Now, in the last chapter of the book, and I had to have to sell this to you, I said I've been battling with that particular question. How do I participate without being part of ZANU-PF or ANC or this movement? I felt the platforms that exist today in Africa are non-conducive. In fact, if we all just join political parties today, we're probably going to be worse off in 50 years. But technology is now allowing us to do things differently. So Uber is in Africa today. Uber is, as you know, is a platform. They don't own a single car. Why do you have to join a political party to be relevant in your country? So I said, maybe let's form an alternative. Now, let me just a little bit zoom in. What is that alternative? So I don't want us to be seen to be a think tank, because part of the book is about leadership, strategy, execution, and output. So I hate to be a think tank. So I put in a platform called AGIP Zambia. Any government in power, AGIP Zambia. So I want to launch that in Zambia, and you will be member number 1. Now, what do I want you to do? I would like you, in that AGIP Zambia, we're going to have 2 million Zambians in that grouping. It's a platform. We will work with the government in power. We will provide the government in power with good permanent secretaries, but we will also hold them accountable. We're going to ask the president, Mr. President, congratulations for your nomination. We know you're fighting with your opposition, but Mr. President, instead, can you tell us what are your 5 key objectives? He's going to tell us on camera. No, put it this way, Mr. President. Okay, now you are perfect. Let me take that messaging, Mr. President, and let me try to sell it to the entire nation. This is AGIP, a self-funded platform movement that is, whose sole existence is to make sure that the government is functional. Because if that government fails, your children are going to suffer significantly. So you need to find a platform where both the opposition and anyone can actually join. But we don't talk politics, we talk governance. Because that's all you're interested in, isn't it? It's not necessarily the power.
Another question? Yeah, and just to add to that, I think would 100% endorse that. And when I was working at CARE, a lot of the work that we did was really looking at how do you work with citizens to hold governments accountable. And I think technology has really provided, as you said, a real enabler. But when I look back even in our own history, and whether it was the civil rights movement or the women's movement or a whole range of things, or today Black Lives Matter, et cetera, it is because citizens make their voices heard and then are able to put make governments accountable. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of civil society and what you can do to really help make governments accountable. And then once you have governments that have changed, then it's time to go in and be part of the government. But you want to, as you said, to be part of a government that's not going to pull you down and pull you to the least common denominator, but to actually be part of a government that's moving its citizens forward, that has the interest of its country, people in best mind. So you got to do that work beforehand, and then once the governments have become accountable, that's the time for you to run and be the president of Zambia.
Dr. Gayle highlights key leadership characteristics for leaders operating in environments devoid of hierarchical leadership structure.
Because I think oftentimes in in civil society or in the non-business context, where, as you said, businesses have tended to be more hierarchical leadership. I think that's changing a lot, but that has been more traditional. You have the profit motive, you have actual financial incentives that can be used that in some ways has allowed for a different kind of leadership model, but you may talk about that more. I think that's, I think that is continuing to change. But I think this role of empathy plays a large part in leadership broadly. And I think people are willing to follow leaders who they feel are actually there to serve their interest. And I think being empathetic is one of those qualities that allow people to feel like you're actually there not for your own purpose, but you're there because you actually believe that you have skills that can help to serve others. And I often think about the servant leadership model, which is talked about a lot, particularly in the social sector, where people are attracted to your leadership because you see your role as helping to enable others versus helping to empower yourself. So I think that, you know, that has always been the way that I've tried to think about leadership is, you know, what is it that the organization needs from me? What is it that the community needs from me? How do you actually get people to buy into a vision that you create together? And I think creating a shared vision is also very much a part of that. And then how do you make people feel like they're part of the solution and connect them to where you want to go? So, you know, I think that's the type of leadership model that I think works a lot more when you don't have a hierarchical command and control structure.
Yes. I'll just add that I think sometimes there are three quadrants that matter, whether it's in a community environment, it's in a small business, you're running your own bakery. I saw a lady from Botswana, I'll come to your bakery actually, get some bread when I get to Gaborone. Whether you're running a corporation, what are your people, your stakeholders, your community members most passionate about? You've got to find that. Whatever business you run, they call it the hedgehog concept. What are your people most passionate about? Because if you connect with them at that level, they'll follow you. The second question you ask is, what is the one thing that you can offer or do as a community, as a business, as a bakery, that you can do better than anyone else? If you run a bakery in Botswana, what makes your bakery the most unique in the world? Don't even compete with just Botswana only, in the entire world. Mm-hmm. Because today the Chinese can actually bring bread into Africa and you might have unfair competition. So you got to have that recipe that says this makes this bakery the most unique in the world. The last one is, what is that economic driver? That's one thing that you can do that will generate the numbers for you. If it's a community environment, what is that the community wants to see? So what is going to stroke your numbers continuously in the right direction? Now, what is going to be that service delivery that the community will be proud of? When you put all these three things together, you will get a following. You actually don't need a lot of stripes for people to follow. People follow a passionate leader who speaks to their needs, who follows through on their execution requirements. So the rules are basically the same whether you're running a billion-dollar company or you're running a community service. You've got to be able to align your objectives with your community.